Donald Trump's hush money trial in New York is entering its final phases. After 5 weeks of sometimes graphic testimony, defense lawyers have today been making their final pitches to the jury. Well, Trump is accused of falsifying his business records to cover up a payment to a porn star in the run-up to his presidential campaign back in 2016. Well, the outcome of this trial could be the first ever criminal conviction of a former US president, and it comes less than 6 months before voters choose whether to give Trump another 4 years in the White House. Well, polls show that he is currently neck and neck with the incumbent president, Joe Biden. Well, let's get the latest from France 24's Jessica Masurier, who's standing by for us outside the courthouse in New York. Jessica, welcome to the programme. Just tell us what's been happening there today, and when are we going to know what?
Thanks, Tom. Well, today we are hearing closing arguments in the hush money trial of Donald Trump. We've already heard from defense lawyer Todd Blanche, who had some really harsh swipes against the star witness Michael Cohen. He called Cohen the human embodiment of reasonable doubt because, of course, the jury has to decide that Trump is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in order for him to be convicted in this case. He also called Michael Cohen the greatest liar of all time, aka the gloat. So a colourful closing argument there from the defence. The essential thrust of the argument was that, well, the star witness, the former lawyer and fixer of Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, is lying about everything, and you shouldn't believe him and you shouldn't convict Trump based on what he said. Now we are going to be hearing the closing arguments from the prosecution. They will argue that everything that Michael Cohen said about how he was instructed by Trump to do these hush money payments in order to silence Stormy Daniels and essentially influence the electoral process is all true, and they can be sure that it's true because it is backed up by evidence. Over the course of these 5 weeks of the trial, or almost 5 weeks, with 22 witnesses, 20 called by the prosecution, the prosecution built a very clear narrative, which was then finished up with the testimony from Cohen and backed up with evidence. And the prosecution will be reminding the jurors of all of that evidence that they will argue proves Donald Trump's guilt. Now, after we've heard the closing arguments, then the jury will get their instructions for deliberations. We have been told that it's possible that the closing arguments could continue into tomorrow, and at that point, the jury will get the instructions for deliberations, and then after that, we could be getting a verdict, but we're not sure, of course, when that verdict would come through.
OK, well, let's move on from talking about star witnesses that you just mentioned there and start talking about movie stars, because I think it's fair to say one of Donald Trump's harshest and most high-profile critics was outside the building where you are there in Manhattan. Tell us, who was this and what was this person saying?
That's quite right. Well, we caught up with Robert De Niro, who had come here, he said, to speak out against Donald Trump. He believes that there is a real risk right now that Donald Trump could end up getting re-elected, and he says that if Donald Trump is re-elected in November, he believes he will become a dictator. So he was really speaking with a sense of urgency. He said he felt compelled to come down here, and he spoke to France 24 as well. I don't know if we can possibly take a listen, Tom.
Hoping to God he won't, because I think everybody will regret in such a way, no matter who you are, whether you're big business and you went with Trump or whoever you are, it will affect you in ways that you never could imagine. We are very lucky in this country, and we take it for granted. People thought they could control Hitler. They thought maybe they could control Mussolini. Didn't happen. And other people we don't even know and read about in countries that are less visible. But the same thing happens. A dictator is a dictator, and that's what Trump wants to do and be. I'm sorry. There's nothing good about it. Nothing good about it.
Essentially, Robert De Niro also told us that all along, Donald Trump has been hustling Americans, lying and cheating his way to the presidency. That really stands in contrast with what we've heard from other high-profile people who've been coming down to speak outside the Trump hush money trial. A lot of prominent Republicans have been down here, including the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. In fact, there was one moment just last week where there were a whole host of Republicans who stood in formation behind Donald Trump as he addressed the media, all of them wearing what you might call the Donald Trump uniform, that red tie and dark suit. Some notable absences here, though. We have not seen Melania or Ivanka Trump at all.
OK, Jessica Masurier there in New York. Thank you very much indeed for bringing us all the very latest.